Bachelor of Education program, and it includes an Aboriginal focus. Aboriginal education is part of who CBU is. So when we began our education program, which was in 2009, we wanted from the beginning to have part of this be a thrust or a concentration, something that would be our brand or something important in our BEd. So we started with that as 4 courses in a concentration, and the way we had to fit it in was that it fit in the stream of electives, because students still had to take all of the courses required by the province for either elementary or secondary. So that's the way it started, and that's the way it has existed since 2009. We're now in the process of going through a review for the province of education, for the province of Nova Scotia, and so it's going to change a little bit. We'll still have 4 courses in our concentration. The language piece of that is going to be taught outside that. It's going to be a separate language piece of that. So students will get an endorsation in Mi'kmaq language. And all students in CBU's program, whether they're in the concentration or not, will be taking at least 2 courses with that are founded in Aboriginal education. So we think all those things are good. So it's been a great concentration, but it's evolving to be something different that we think is even going to be stronger. It's the teachers that we have pretty much are all, we call them ICA, which is individual course assignment, pretty much all part-time teachers, because until recently, or at least we're hoping to make a change, we haven't had any Mi'kmaq teachers. So full-time Mi'kmaq teachers in the education department at CBU. So the teachers in the program are Mi'kmaq educators from community. So they are the teachers of the courses. In terms of the curriculum that we have and how it's been shaped and why we offer the courses that we do, in the very beginning when we built this concentration, we did some consultation and community discussions as to what things people felt were most important for us to include. And that's really where our language piece, that language thrust, became so important for us. It's a very strong message from the community. Language preservation is something that communities are working very hard at, and been trying to find a way for the university to help on that. Part of the reason why the concentration is evolving and we're changing the way that we do language is that we were getting so many students coming through our concentration who weren't speakers, or sometimes we've had lots of non-Indigenous students come through, and we don't want to discourage them either. But we're changing the way that we do the language piece so that students will have to have a minimum of 18 credits in Mi'kmaq language in their undergraduate degree. And then they'll take additional methodologies in their BEd program. So they will get an endorsation on their license, the same as if they were going to be a French teacher. So Mi'kmaq language will be on their teacher's license. So that's a step forward. We're excited about that. Sometimes we do that well and sometimes we don't. I think we've often ridden on the coattails of the fact that we have some strong staff at CBU, Mi'kmaq staff, who are part of community, who can connect us with people in community, who can direct us to the right educators and so on to speak with. So we have things like roundtables, we have community consultations. In this recent BEd review that we're doing, we had a community consultation in the spring saying, look, we're changing this from what it was. Are there any new things that we should be focusing on? So it's informal and a bit ad hoc, I guess, but we do have some strong guidance from CBU with some folks here that are really, I think, connected with community and are able to direct us a bit. So we just try not to go too far ahead without asking and getting some input. And plus, these folks that have been part-time teachers with us, even though they don't work full-time with us, they worked with us a long time. And they as well have a lot to contribute to our direction and what we should be doing and making suggestions to the university and all of that. When CBU was created, and the picture of the sod turning when we built the university was a picture of the first president, Father Donnie Campbell, and Grand Chief Donald Marshall. So it's why CBU was created, or part of the reason why CBU was created. So within our education thrust, it's a natural progression from that, or part of that. I think it's excellent for all kinds of reasons. We're putting out lots of really qualified, strong Mi'kmaq teachers into community to fill teaching positions. So it's really a win-win. The community still don't have all the teachers they need, and we've got young teachers walking across the stage with jobs to go to. So that's wonderful. I think this new step that we're taking, where we're going to be able to really do a better job on the language piece, I feel that's another excellent piece in our concentration. And I think another strength is that now it's because we're kind of taking from the concentration and making it core at CBU. Core is in the fact that all Cape Breton University education students will take those courses, so that there'll be no teacher that will graduate from here that won't at least have some foundations related to Aboriginal ways of knowing and teaching and learning from an Aboriginal perspective. And, that kind of is in response to and aligns with recommendations from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, but it also aligns with the value set at CBU, and I think it's being true to who we are with trying to take the next step forward. I can tell you that the measure of success, or the one I don't think is our only measure of success, is numbers. In that, so often in universities you look at big classes and you think if a program is small, it's not successful. And so that's not the measure. It's not just about having hundreds of students, because we don't have hundreds of students, but we have strong handfuls in every single class of strong Mi'kmaq educators moving out into community. So I think success can be measured by whether or not we are meeting community needs to have trained and ready teachers to fill positions in community. I think it's a measure of success when community is working with us and feel enough ownership in what we do that they want to work with us. That's a measure of success. And I hope a measure of success down the road is that we will be able to say that we found a way for the university piece to contribute to the language preservation. Somebody has to, and in Nova Scotia, 5 of the Mi'kmaq communities in the province are on Cape Breton Island, so we've got a population cluster. Eskazoni's the biggest community, strong language there. So it would be nice to think, though it's a little bit futuristic, to think that we can help on that piece in terms of preserving Mi'kmaq language. Because I think the benefit is different whether you're a Mi'kmaq student or a non-Mi'kmaq student. And I think there are benefits on both sides. For Mi'kmaq students, I think it's a strength for them because they see themselves as part of the university programs and priorities. There's certainly an emphasis on them as strong Mi'kmaq pre-service teachers. So their culture is well represented in our program, and they're taught by Mi'kmaq educators. So I think that's nice for the Mi'kmaq students. For the non-Mi'kmaq students, I think it really gives them a whole different worldview and helps them understand some of the differences and similarities. Just understand a little bit more about First Nations education in Canada, the relationship between communities and between the white parts of Canada and the non-white parts of Canada, and some of the complexities and challenges over several hundred years. Every Canadian educator should really know those things. So it's really rich on both sides of that coin. Something I'll share that's a bit of an aside. A year or so ago in Nova Scotia, there was some labor unrest around, there was work to rule that really didn't have anything to do with the university, but it did affect teacher placements or practicum placements for students. And so for our cohort, because of where the university is, because of the size of our class, because we have great relationships with community, we were able to take all of our students, some whom had plan practicums in non-Mi'kmaq communities, and we were able to place all of them in, or 90% of them. There were a few students that went to a private school, but 90% of our students went into schools in community, in the Mi'kmaq communities across Cape Breton Island. And it was we did that because we had to. And some of the students were a little bit they weren't excited going, and it wasn't really that they didn't want to go to an in-community school. It's just it meant further transportation for some of them. Some of them were going to have to drive 45 minutes, for example. It seemed like a lot off the top. But the feedback we got from that was 100% positive from both the schools, which said, send us more of your students. We want more of your students next year. And the students that went out into community and saying, oh my goodness, I wasn't planning to do that, but am I ever glad? And so it's that as well was win-win. Really a rich experience for all our students. I think whether they teach in community or not, they're going to be better teachers because of that experience. There are 2 courses that have a language base that are not going to be in the concentration anymore. One is kind of, well, they're both designed for speakers, kind of level 1 and level 2, and they're moving out. We have a course that is a foundations in Aboriginal education models. And we have one that is a literacy course. Those are not the names, but those are the focuses of those courses. In the new piece of the program, those 2 language courses are coming out. The 2 courses are going to be core courses. One is going to be Perspectives on Schooling, a version of that. It hasn't got its final name yet because it's a brand new course. So that will be an indigenized course of a version of a course that's core in every BEd in Nova Scotia. Then there's a new course that is going to be an integrated methods course that is going to be part of the concentration as well. Plus we will maintain the Aboriginal education models and probably the literacy course. So that's kind of what the 4 courses were. And they're going to be 4 different courses, or 2 different courses, 2 of the same courses, and the language courses will exist outside the concentration. We'll be able to give people a much better, more concrete version of this, probably by the end of 2018. These are all under construction now, and there are some approval steps that they have to go to before they'll actually be in our university calendar. But by then we should have firmed up and approved and well articulated descriptions around all of those courses. I don't know if I'm the right person to answer because I'm not Indigenous. So I'll answer from my perspective as a white Canadian educator. And to me, Indigenous education is education mostly led, or at least that strongly represents an Indigenous worldview, which is different than the Eurocentric perspective on education. So that's what I see it as, education that is developed with and for Aboriginal Canadians. And when I think about CBU and the places where we have done good work, there are places we haven't done good work, but where we've done our best work has been when we have been really true to that, where it's been with and for, in our case it's Mi'kmaq people because of where we live in Canada. That's when we, I think, have had the richest, best Indigenous education and the strongest pedagogy, however you measure it. Well, my dream, a couple I've kind of spoken about. I guess that whole with and for piece is part of my dream if I look at CBU moving forward. I look forward to a day that we have more Mi'kmaq faculty, that we have more Mi'kmaq people in senior administrative positions, that we have Mi'kmaq employees across the university, not just in Unama'ki College, but that there's a wider representation within our culture at CBU. My dream includes that language piece, And I guess those would be the biggest for me. I just hope that CBU going forward can stay true to the original value piece. That's part of the reason why we're here, and we don't want to lose sight of that. We used to always say there'd be nothing that we couldn't do if you didn't have a gazillion dollars to throw at it. So, I mean, resources are always an issue. People are our most expensive and most important resource. So that's the best thing we can do, in my opinion, is to find ways over time to have more Mi'kmaq people and more Mi'kmaq educators, more Mi'kmaq faculty members. I think that's the resource that we need most. We could probably work hard at professional development and some education for non-Mi'kmaq people as well. But in a way, it's not just about resources. I think it's about values and about strong leadership that keeps us true to those values. So it's not all about money or resources either. It's about people respecting that that's where we came from, that's who we are, and that's who we want to be in the future, and working with Mi'kmaq leaders to move forward.